All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today I'll be doing my preview and prediction for the 2022 Camellia Bowl between Georgia Southern and Buffalo. Georgia Southern 3.5-point favorites, 67.5 is the over-under. Tuesday, December 27th on ESPN at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama is the site of this one. Serious history. This is the first meeting ever between these two schools. Looking at the Georgia Southern offense, Clay Helton, great job here in year one. This went from an option offense to an offense that really airs it out. And, they've done a tremendous job in such a short time with, not exactly the personnel they wanted, you would imagine, when transitioning from that type of offense to, an air raid attack. And they've had no struggles. 34 points per game, 470 yards per contest nearly. Kyle Van Treese, the former Buffalo Bull, playing against his former team here, 3,900 yards, 25 touchdowns. Does have 15 interceptions, and the 61% completion rating isn't exactly great. This is kind of a big play offense. It's also an offense that moves downfield a good bit. Caleb Hood, he was here many years, waited his turn. Now they've switched over to an offense. He was finally able to unleash some of his skills. 80 receptions, 896 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. Burgess, the second leading receiver, he's out with an injury. But Jeremy Singleton, the Houston transfer, 66 grabs, 714 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's been terrific. This is an offense that certainly has amped up its production a good bit. You also look at a running back in Jalen White, 914 yards and 10 touchdowns, 5.6 per. This is a really good offense. It has some balance, 140 yards on the ground per contest, less than 30 attempts too, so they're certainly very efficient in doing so. And this offensive line's been great also, second nationally in sacks allowed. This is a team that has played so good up front that's allowed this offense to really flourish. Coming into this game, the one thing they have to do is certainly limit the turnovers because their offense has not been great, or their defense rather has not been the bestest of units. They've been able to weather the storm. That's what got them here. You look at guys like Caleb Kelly, tackle, Khalil Crowder at guard. Those guys have been the leaders for them up front. You look at a Buffalo offense that's, not exactly the same as Georgia Southern's, but their numbers really aren't too far off, at least in terms of points per game, 29 of those, 376 yards per contest. That's, big-time difference between the GSU offense. Cole Snyder, 59% completion rate, 2,700 yards, 17 touchdowns, 8 picks, just like Van Treese was, a bit of a game manager here for Buffalo, and that's what he's done this year, and, pretty respectable at doing so. The turnovers aren't great. The completion rating is not exactly exceptional either. But the thing for this offense is they're pretty good in terms of talent. They have, a nice running back duo. They also have a nice receiving duo here in Justin Marshall and Quinn Williams. Williams leads the team with 56 receptions, has 643 yards and 5 touchdowns. While Marshall, not far behind with 53 grabs, but he does have a team-high 710 yards and 8 touchdowns. Jamari Gassett at times has gotten involved. It's really been the Marshall and Williams show. Same in the backfield. Mike Washington, Ron Cook, 600-plus yards each. Washington, 606. Cook, 600 on the dot, and they have a combined 11 touchdowns. So this is an offense that has all of a sudden, continued to run the football very well, only 143 yards per game. They're not very efficient because they have 41 attempts, 3.4 yards per carry for this football team. So it's not exactly great. Akron held them to 27 yards on the ground. Ohio only 22. And then in between that was 2 pretty respectable efforts. They've topped the 200-yard mark on 4 different occasions this year. This is just a very inconsistent rushing attack. That's why this offense has certainly faltered at times. But I think they're much more talented than these numbers are suggesting, especially a receiver. They have 4 go-to guys in all on this offense. Ron Cook even gets involved as the 4th leading pass catcher. So, Buffalo, pretty interesting unit. It's kind of the same. You expect them to run the football, but they've certainly upped their production on the through the air. While on the ground, it's kind of dipped a little bit, and they are 83rd in sacks allowed in college football, so their offensive line's kind of a below-the-barrel unit. But now they're going to face a Georgia Southern defense that's just poor, 32 points per game allowed, almost 500 yards per contest. One of the nation's worst run defenses, 129th in that category, give up 5.7 yards per carry. Justin Ellis, 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He's one of the leaders for them. One of the lone guys has been a star. Marquise Watson Trent, though, at linebacker, 105 tackles, 4.5 TFL. They are losing Derek Canteen, one of their top corners, to the transfer portal. It's not going to make things any easier. They're not great against the pass, really, but, strong individual talents is what this defense is really about. And, it's just going to be a problem for them. He's definitely far and away their best cover player. Anthony Wilson, he's been, pretty solid this year. Justin Birdsong as well. This is just not good for them. You look at this run defense, they got, gashed the last 3-4 weeks. Look at these numbers, 376 and 5 touchdowns allowed against App State. Won that one in a thriller and double OT. Marshall, 255, 242 for Louisiana Lafayette. and 321 and 4 scores against South Alabama. They lost 3 of those 4 games. And, of course, the aforementioned one win was a thriller against App State in, a couple overtimes. So this is a run defense that all year long has been incredibly poor. They had another game they lost where they gave up 300-plus yards. They don't seem to do anything against the run. When they do, they win games, but when they can't really find a pulse, they lose them. So I just don't know really what to expect. 28 touchdowns given up for them on the ground. This is not going to be good for them. 11 interceptions on the year for this football team. And, again, their best player in Canteen is not going to be playing. But, again, just as an Ellis, he's going to have to be big here. Same with Watson Trent. These two guys, Latrell Bullard, a freshman. They do have some impressive young talent, 6 foot for 345, Latrell Bullard, and LJ McLeod. He's also a freshman, 6 foot 275. Some, promising young talent on this unit, maybe to lean on in the future, especially on the defensive front. A lot of youth there. That's a big reason why they've really struggled. And I don't know. This defense is just not very impressive one bit. And they're just, their run defense, I think, is going to struggle here, playing 2 great running backs in Washington and Cook. I wouldn't say exactly great, but they are good players, and I do think their production has certainly kind of spoke for themselves as a duo. Looking at the Buffalo defense, a little bit better, 27 points per game allowed for them. They do give up 175 per game on the ground, but their pass defense is what you're going to be looking at here. 17 touchdowns allowed, 12 interceptions, 56.5% comp rate, and the 216 yards per game allowed. That's a really good number. And, again, that's what you're going to be looking at because they're facing an offense that really lights it up through the air. They struggled against Ohio a couple weeks ago. That's the only game you can really think of where they were not good against the pass. They played Toledo a week earlier, and they had 4 interceptions in that one. And then early on in the year against Coastal Carolina, it was certainly a bit of an issue. But this is a secondary that I think has played very well, especially in the back month and a half of football. Look at a guy in James Patterson who's terrific for them. 11 tackles for loss on top of 112 tackles. Sean Dollick, another linebacker, 12.5 tackles for loss on 134 tackles. I mean, the production in the middle is just absurd for this defense. They also got Jamin Muse coming over from BC. He's been a great safety for them. Isaiah King at corner. Draymond Williams in the middle. He's been a productive defensive tackle. This is a defense that certainly, I think, should be playing better than they have been, but they're really good against the pass. They're a little bit sluggish against the run. I don't know if that's something that Georgia Southern is going to be able to expose. They only have 24 sacks on the year, but the 24 forced turnovers is a pretty good number. So we'll see what happens with this football team in this game. I definitely think this defense certainly has a good matchup advantage in the secondary. That's going to lead you to the final thoughts and a prediction. I think for Georgia Southern, got to clog running lanes a little bit more consistently. That's really just a tough ask considering how poor they've been the last couple of games. Buffalo, get the run game going early and often, and then play good coverage underneath because they're going to throw it a lot, probably 50 or 60 passing attempts from Van Treese in this one. So if you can cover underneath well, don't get beat downfield, that's certainly going to set you up for success. And I think this will be a close game, but I'm going to take Buffalo 43-37. I just think the 2 running backs of Washington and Cook against this defense, even though they only average about 145 or whatever the number was on the ground, they're going to certainly double that, I think, in this game. It's certainly possible. 2 talented running backs against this terrible run defense. I really want to pick GSU because I've been very happy with Clay Helton as a former USC coach, as a USC fan myself, and I think they've been very impressive, especially on offense. They're exciting. But this is going to be about the run game. Buffalo, I don't even think they're going to control clock. I think they're just going to continue to rip off big plays, and they're going to have some fast scoring drives, which is not going to help their defense. So I think that's why Georgia Southern's going to be able to hang into this one. But I think we're going to see a lot of points in this one, a bit of a shootout. I'm going to take Buffalo, though. I do think late in the game they'll start to grind it out a little bit on the ground, and that's going to be the difference maker. That's me for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.